With centralized fraudsters running amok, now is an especially good time to reevaluate your self-custody setup. And if you're not currently taking self-custody at all, what on earth are you waiting for? Today we are going to be looking at the Foundation Devices Passport Batch 2 with the accompanying Envoy app. I'm really excited for this one. Let's jump in. Welcome back to another video. My name is Ian Major. I'm an entrepreneur, Bitcoin pleb, and all-around raging capitalist, and I have been patiently, or at least attempting to be patient, waiting for my Batch 2 device, and it has finally arrived. And so today we are going to be going into a full tutorial of how to set this thing up, how to pair it with the accompanying mobile app called Envoy, and lots more. So you are not going to want to miss a thing. For those returning to the channel, welcome back, my friends. As always, it is a pleasure to have you. For those new to the channel, I welcome you as well. If you like this type of content, I invite you to consider subscribing and join us in our growing merry gang in cyberspace. I cover all manner of Bitcoin-related content, including a whole slew of tutorials on how to acquire Bitcoin, secure it, privacy best practices, running your own node, mining, and more. You want it, I cover it. That is how this works. But with all that out of the way, I just want to do a very brief overview of some of the key features of the Passport device, and then we will get into the meat of the tutorial. So I'm not even going to dignify Sam Bankman fraud with covering what has happened with FTX. All I will say is that the meme of not your keys, not your coins rings true now more than ever. And so whether you've taken partial self-custody of your stack or haven't even moved things off of third parties at all, or maybe you have self-custody of your stack but you're looking to upgrade your game, the Passport device is a great way to do that. And so as we can see, you can go over to foundationdevices.com and you'll see the Passport option at the top. So this is a Bitcoin hardware wallet. It is priced at $259. So that is certainly among the premium options when you consider, other options like Ledger, which are certainly on the lower end, or even, a cold card, even the Mark IV. So this is definitely a premium priced option, but as we will see, I think it is completely worth it, especially as they have built out the accompanying Envoy app, which makes this really unique. So for those not familiar, right, a hardware wallet that doesn't have its own interface. So an example of a hardware wallet that does have its own interface is something like Ledger. So you have Ledger Live, which is software that you download, and you pair your hardware device up with that. For other hardware wallets, such as something like the cold card, it doesn't have its own software interface. And so you're going to pair your cold card up with something like a desktop wallet such as Sparrow Wallet, or a mobile wallet such as Blue Wallet, etc. By the way, Cold Card Mark IV is a phenomenal device. I recently did a whole tutorial on that. If you want to kind of compare and contrast, be my guest. I have a whole playlist on different hardware options. And generally speaking, I would recommend absolutely either Cold Card, Foundation Devices Passport, which we will cover today, or something like the Seed Signer if you want to go really kind of self-build the thing yourself. Those would be my top three. But in any case, I really like the Envoy accompaniment, which is a mobile app that's going to serve as the interface. We're going to pair up the Passport device with the Envoy app, and it's going to make onboarding to this thing extremely easy, yet it's also going to give us all the great security features that we would expect from a world-class hardware wallet. So as we can see, this thing is fully air-gapped. It's got quite a beautiful kind of display on it. As we will see, it looks like a phone. It looks like a little mobile phone. So it's terrific for OPSEC. It does come with a camera, which makes it so that you can conduct partially signed Bitcoin transactions in an easier fashion, right? You can use a micro SD card if you want to pass that data back and forth that way, but QR codes certainly do make that process easier. Passport does not have a direct connection with the outside world. no USB data, no wireless communications, and even the charging device that we will see has no ability to transfer data of any kind. So this thing is fully air-gapped. This means that you are applying a signature from your private keys that are housed on this separate standalone hardware device. You are applying the signature to a partially constructed Bitcoin transaction that has been generated through your software that you've paired with the hardware wallet. And we'll talk through that in more detail when we go through an example. As we can see, a lot of different software wallets support this. So you could pair this up with all sorts of things: Blue Wallet, Bitcoin Core, Electrum, Nunchuck, Sparrow, Spectre, Wasabi. Again, today we are going to use Envoy for that purpose, but I would invite you to take a look at the first video I did on the Founders Edition, or the batch 1 of Foundation Devices Passport, where I demonstrate how to pair that up with a desktop wallet such as Sparrow. As we can see in terms of the hardware highlights, so it's got a world-class secure element, which you would expect for any of these devices. Got a whole host of sort of security features. The onboarding process will actually help verify supply chain as well. And this thing is fully open source. That includes both the firmware as well as the mobile app itself. If you love to see open source with these types of things, that is absolutely the best way to ensure you're using something that is highly secure, highly vetted. Lastly, I do just want to call out that they have a pretty good documentation section on their website. You can get to that by going to the support link in the top menu, and then you'll be taken to this page that has a great little setup guide, connecting Passport, all this sort of stuff. I'm going to take you through the vast majority of this today, but I did want to point this out that you can use as a reference, and I will link this in the description down below. For example, this is where you could come and for firmware updates, right? You want to make sure the device always has reasonably the latest and greatest firmware. As we will see, one way to do this is through the Envoy mobile app. Another way, if you're a little more paranoid, is to manually download the firmware and also verify it. And so it contains instructions on how to do it. I would probably recommend in most cases doing this. Again, today we're just going to go through the Envoy app, but I did want to call that out as well. So with all of that, let's go ahead and jump into the actual tutorial. All right, so let's get unboxing. The device will arrive in a box that will have this sort of blue security seal on it. And this is very important. If it's tampered with in any way, you'll see that it has void and things like that written on it. So very, very important. Make sure that it is not tampered with at all. If it is, you can email them at hello@foundationdevices.com. Then we've got the actual device itself, and I must say it is pretty sleek looking packaging. So let's get the outer wrapper off. And so there we go. Again, very clean. Let's open this up. And there is the device. So as I was mentioning earlier, it literally looks like a little phone. So this is terrific for OPSEC, right? What is this, sir? Right? You're fleeing government tyranny. Sir, what is this in your bag? What do you think it is? It is a phone. And so we've got our main buttons, our key navigational buttons. We'll power this up in just a moment. And the outer case comes right off, and it's got this lithium battery and power cell. And you can see that the camera is right there on the back. So really a pretty gorgeous device. And we've got some other goodies, of course. We have got the starting card. So this will take you to their Envoy page in the website for you to download the app either on Apple or Android. It's got a handy card for you to write down your 24 words, as well as the backup code that will accompany an encrypted backup file. So we'll go through all that as well. And importantly, and this is why I think that higher price point becomes more justifiable, you also get a high quality SanDisk industrial micro SD card. That is very, very handy. We're going to use this for firmware updates. We're going to use this to put the encrypted backup file on. And optionally, you can use this for transferring partially signed Bitcoin transaction data back and forth as an alternative to QR codes. So that is very nice that it comes with it. We've got a USB-C charge cable. So that's very nice. This is how you would charge the device by just plugging it into the bottom. And then the top is where that micro SD card is going to go. And then lastly, you have these micro SD card adapters. This is super nice. So whether you're using iPhone or Android, and the micro SD can go directly into that. So this is super handy for passing information back and forth on the micro SD card between your mobile phone and the Passport device. All right, so I've got the device. Now I'm going to go ahead and download the Envoy app. You can do using that QR code that is provided in the case, or you can just come to foundationdevices.com/Envoy and just make sure you are downloading the right app from the App Store. So we're going to do that and be right back. All right, excellent. So once you download the app, this is what it will look like when you boot it up for the very first time. And it gives you these options. I don't have a passport, connect an existing passport, or set up a new passport. And so that last option is, of course, what we are going to do. It gives you terms of use. So fine. And this is part of that process I was alluding to earlier, where it helps ensure that the device is valid, the supply chain hasn't been tampered with during shipping, any of that stuff. So let's go ahead and hit next. And so on the passport itself, I'm going to press the power button on the right, and we can see it starting to load. Welcome to Passport. Congratulations on taking custody of your Bitcoin and reclaiming your sovereignty. So we'll hit the little arrow. And it says, how would you like to set up your passport? So you can do a manual setup, which again is reasonably straightforward. There are instructions for that in the docs that I will link. But again, we are doing it with the Envoy apps. And we have done this in Envoy. We selected set up a new passport. So we'll go ahead and hit continue. And on the next screen, scan the QR code shown in Envoy. So we will do just that. So let's go ahead and get this scanned. There we go. So on Envoy, we'll go ahead and hit next. And so we are going to basically now do the reverse. So we're going to scan the QR code on the passport screen. We will grant access to the camera. And we'll go ahead and advance this on the passport. And we'll scan the QR code with... All right. So our passport is secure. Great. We can hit that the security check result has passed, so that is good. Now it is time to set up our 6 to 12 digit PIN. So we'll go ahead and continue to set up the PIN. Again, this is something that you will always need when starting up the device. So it should be unique. It shouldn't be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Have something robust. Keep in mind that you should never forget this. So let's go ahead and set that up on the device itself, as there's no way to recover a lost PIN or reset a passport. Please record your PIN somewhere safe. And so we'll go ahead and enter the PIN and be right back. All right, so we've got our PIN. And it's going to ask me to confirm, and it is setting the PIN. All right, PIN set successfully. That is great. And do we want to update the passport's firmware now? We do. This is always a good step. People ask, well, how frequently should I keep my firmware on my different devices up to date? I think you could do something like quarterly. It's typically not the case that these updates are kind of critically frequent, but something like quarterly is probably a good cadence. So let's go ahead and hit yes. We want to update the passport's firmware. And it says, please insert a micro SD card. So we're going to come back to our Envoy, and we'll go ahead and hit continue. And so as it says, and again, these instructions are, as you can see, very clear. We will grab the micro SD card, and we're going to put it in the adapter. So we're going to put it in like so. Okay, so the micro SD is in the adapter, and the adapter goes into the phone. The blue light. So let's go ahead and hit continue. And it says allow Envoy to access micro SD card. So we will do that. And we'll choose the location accordingly. We'll hit done. Great, we'll continue. And that's it. So on an iPhone, it's just like immediate. I think there's maybe one other notification on Android, but that is that. So let's remove the micro SD card. And we are going to insert it into the top of the device with the sort of gold bars facing this way. Make sure it's, really kind of in there. And we'll go ahead and hit refresh. And there we go. So we've got our .bin file that we are going to select. And we are installing the firmware update 2.0.4. Again, if you want to do the manual kind of cryptographic verification and checksums and all that good stuff, check out their docs section, which goes through how to do that manually. But we will go ahead and hit go. The good news as well is that this will not even install unless there are at least 2 of 4 signatures from the Foundation Devices team. So you also have that as an extra layer of protection here. But let's go ahead and continue. And it is preparing the update. Okay, excellent. Validating the firmware. All right, so it's now effectively rebooted. We'll put in our PIN. Excellent. So let's create or restore, if we want, a wallet seed. We can hit finished on the Envoy app and we'll keep chugging along. So let's go ahead and advance this on the passport. And we want to, in this case, create a new seed. You certainly could restore from a backup file or from a other seed. So you would, literally put in the 12 or 24 words of that other seed if you wanted to restore it within this device. But in our case, we're going to do create a new seed. So we'll hit go. And it says generate a new seed phrase now. And we'll hit yes. And it is generating the seed and saving it. They use an open source random number generator for this, so that is good. And it has been created and saved. Now, you'll notice it didn't present you right away with the words. I think this is part of them trying to make the onboarding process a little bit easier, but we will access the seed in just a moment. And it's also going to create an encrypted backup on the microSD that is still on the device. So we'll go ahead and hit yes. The next screen will show you the backup code that is required to decrypt the backup. So be absolutely sure to write this down on your, little card or wherever you wish. This is the backup code that is going to be necessary to decrypt the backup file. Now, that's not the only way you could restore this if something were to go wrong. Again, we'll have the seed words as well. So that's option 1. And then option 2 is the backup code for the encrypted backup that will be stored on the microSD. So let's go ahead and get our backup code. All right, and then as per tradition, it will quiz us on whether we recorded the backup code correctly. So we'll do that and be right back. All right, so quiz passed. Great news. So the backup is now complete. So a new file, an encrypted file, has been written to the microSD. And now we're going to pair this up with Envoy. It's going to present me with a QR code to scan. And so on the Envoy app, I'm going to kind of catch up a little bit. I'm going to hit create new seed. And I've already done these instructions. I've created the encrypted backup. And bada boom, we know this. We've got our new seed. And so let's get started. And so we will scan the QR code that the passport generates. So let's go ahead and display the QR code. And we'll go ahead and scan this with our phone. All right, so we've got connection successful. Envoy is now connected to your passport. And it gives us 2 options. We want to validate the receive address. So this is to just double check that we have properly paired the hardware wallet with the software wrapper, if you will, that is Envoy. And so again, just to reiterate for folks who are maybe a little bit newer to this might feel like, we're going through like 2 devices in parallel. The whole point here is to ensure that your keys, your private keys, never leave the hardware device. But we still need an easy, flexible way to present addresses and receive funds and an interface to create and construct transactions. And so that is where the software sort of accompaniment. So let's go and validate receive address. And it is going to present us a QR code to scan with our passport, as we can see. And so on the next page, we'll scan the receive address. And there we go. All right, so there's our receive address, and we've got the little checkbox. So that is an indication that we are good to go. And so we are now properly paired up. Everything is synced. Passport is configured successfully. We can now start using the device. And so we will now see the main home screen of the Passport device. Continue on the Envoy. And we are now in the main area of the Envoy app as well. So let's take a quick tour of each, and then we'll dive into receiving and sending Bitcoin. Right, so let's take a tour of the Passport device. A couple of these will be more advanced considerations, but I want to do a holistic overview. And again, then we'll get to the receiving and sending. But on this primary tab, you'll see there's a couple options. We can apply a signature from our private keys using either a QR code or with a micro SD. So we'll take a look at that in just a moment. We could redo the verification of the address process if needed. And then this manage account option is interesting. This is actually where you can get additional ways to connect your hardware wallet to other wallets, right? So if you click into this, you'll see there's a lot of other options. And so clicking into one of these, for example, Sparrow, would allow you to choose whether it's a single sig or a multi-sig that you intend to set up. And this will give you the appropriate export, either as a QR code if that other wallet supports that, or a export file into the micro SD. And so this is how you export your extended public key from your hardware wallet that you can then import into other software wallets, such as the ones listed on this screen. So very nice to have that all tidy there. If we come back to the main sort of primary page, you'll notice that you can hit the left and right to scroll across these different options. So on the right-hand side is where you could enter an optional passphrase. So again, this serves somewhat as a 25th seed word. So you can always enter that optional passphrase, although just be advised that if you do that, you're going to need to enter that every time that you open the device to ensure that you're using the appropriate key pairs associated with that now updated sort of modified seed. Let's now scroll over to the left, and we can see a number of settings here. So within the device, we can change things like screen brightness, we can change our PIN, etc. In the backup, this is where we can create another backup file with the backup now option. We can restore, if we were to want to, for example, restore a different backup file, we could use that option. We can verify the backup by putting in our backup code and making sure that, hey, all is good. And we can view that backup code if needed, which we wrote down a little bit earlier. Firmware, this is where you can come to tell the device to update the firmware using an updated file on the microSD. You can also check your current version that you're on. Couple Bitcoin settings. You can change the units from BTC to sats. This is also where you can inspect any multi-sig setups that this wallet is a part of. So we have not set that up yet. And I'm not going to cover this in today's video. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I did cover multi-sig setups in some of my other videos, so check those out and I'll link some in the description down below. But the key with multi-sig is that you often have to tell the hardware wallet about the multisig that it is now a part of. So in one of the prior screens, we saw how to export the multisig public key from this device to something like Sparrow. And what would happen is that once we combine that with other signing devices in Sparrow, we would get a multisig file back that we can import into the wallet so that it has the context on the other public keys that are a part of that multisig setup. And then there's some network settings. You can toggle between mainnet and testnet. Probably would not want to deviate there. And then finally, you've got this advanced option. So there's this concept of security words. These are two words that basically just add yet another layer of security. So you can opt to show them at login or not. Basically, what will happen if you show it at login is that you'll input the first couple of digits of your PIN, and then you'll be shown these two words. As a check, if you don't see the right two words that you would be expecting, you know that, hey, maybe someone has like swapped out the device or something like that. And this is also where we can see our seed words. So let's go ahead and do this. Passport is about to display your seed words and, if defined, your passphrase. Anyone who knows these words can control your funds. Display this as sensitive information. So we're going to do this, and we're going to write that down along with our on our card, and we'll be right back. All right, so I've written the seed words down. So we now basically have two forms of backup. We have the seed words themselves. So if I lose this device, something were to happen, I can always restore my access to my funds using the seed words. And alternatively, I have the encrypted backup file that has the same information where I would use that backup code in order to decrypt and access that. So multiple backups. I think it's a pretty good exercise to even like test that out, right? Before you've kind of done stuff. Like, for example, you could come down and say, erase passport. That'll nuke the device. And then you could come back, and once you power it back on, instead of creating a new seed, you could just say restore either from backup or restore from seed. And that gives you practice to recover your wallet if something were to happen before you put funds on it. So I would probably recommend doing that as a little bonus point exercise. All right, so let's come back to our main screen. If you ever want to shut it down, you can just use the left button. It'll take a second to get used to it, but you can see in the bottom left and bottom right, that corresponds with these left and right buttons. And then the center, you have all four directions to navigate. All right, so let's come back to our Envoy app where we can see three tabs here, the devices. So you can add additional passport devices. You've got the three little dots at the top where you can edit the device name if you have multiple of them. So for example, maybe I'll say, batch 2. Something like that. You've got this little kind of notification bell, which gives you all the sort of activity that's happened. You also have this little learn area, which is quite nice. It's got a number of videos, FAQ, so you can check out that as well. But where we want to go is, of course, our accounts, and we have got our primary account associated with our batch 2 device. And of course, it's got no Bitcoin. So we are going to promptly change that. And an account as a concept is attached to the hierarchical deterministic wallets that form the vast majority of best-in-class wallets that folks use these days. So this is not necessarily like an account that you see in other cryptocurrencies, right? Bitcoin is still fundamentally a UTXO accounting model, so slightly different. But again, we can click into our little account here. And it is really easy to send or receive. We can see those two primary options. So let's go ahead and receive some Bitcoin. And we are presented with both a QR code as well as our text address. So I'm going to tap the address to copy it to a clipboard. You can share this in different ways as well. And what I'm going to use in this case is just another Bitcoin wallet. And Blue Wallet has automatically detected that I've got a Bitcoin address on it. And so I will indeed just go ahead and use that. And let's just send, 50,000 sats. For purposes of this demo, I will leave it at the chunky 15 sats per virtual byte. But that is okay. I will eat that this time. I've done a whole video on Blue Wallet if you'd like to check it out. But let's go ahead and hit next. And I just want to quickly scan and make sure that the addresses are aligned, and they are. So let's go ahead and send the Bitcoin. So I've got this pending transaction, and I can come over, and you can see that little header at the top. For privacy, we create a new address each time you visit the screen, not even necessarily that you use it. So that is very, very cool. Again, address reuse is very, very bad for privacy. Makes it easier for chain surveillance entities to track your activity. So always try to use a new address, and Envoy is very good at doing that for you, as are many other software wallets. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. All right, so we have got our 50,000 sats. Don't be alarmed if it takes a little bit for this to show up. I'm not sure if that's a Tor issue these days, or maybe their node is just loaded up with requests, which, by the way, just as a quick aside, if you come all the way back to the options here, you can go into settings and show the fiat value if you would like. You can view things in sats. You can toggle the Tor connectivity. I would recommend leaving that on, although again, there have been a lot of issues with Tor recently. And this is where you could put in a custom Electrum server address if you would like to connect your own node. you will see the default one you are using there. And so for those running their own node, they could do that. I think if you're running an Umbrel, the recent 0.5 update, you would actually grab this from the Electrum server app, not the Bitcoin Core app. So it's a little bit weird how Umbrel has redone some of that. But do take a look at my prior videos on Sparrow Wallet, where I have shown how to connect an Umbrel node to that desktop wallet. And so if you do that and then you pair up your Passport hardware wallet, you would have the same benefits of using your own node. And it's not the end of the world, but keep in mind that when you're using someone else's node, you are conveying information to them. You're sharing information such as your public keys, your balances, things like that. Okay, so let's come back to our Bitcoin. So we've changed the denomination to sats. And so we are ready to send. And so this is where we're going to need our actual Passport device. So we're going to boot this back up. It will auto turn off and we will re-enter our PIN. And then if you did elect to have those two security words, you would see them as part of that PIN process. So we are ready here. Now let's come back and send some Bitcoin. So we'll hit send instead of receive. And we are going to need an address to send it to. You can hit the little icon here to scan a QR code. In my case, I'm going to send it right on back to Blue Wallet, again, just for demonstration purposes. And so if I come back to Blue Wallet, I will go to receive and I will copy my address accordingly. And so let's come back to Envoy and paste that in. And in our case, we'll just send the max number of sats and we'll hit continue. And this is nice. It does the math for you of the fees. And so, we can take a look and see either standard option or the, a little bit faster option if we're willing to pay more sats. It would be nice to fully customize that, but maybe that's not available just yet. But in any case, we'll select the standard option and we'll go ahead and hit confirm. Now, this is where the partially signed Bitcoin transactions come into play. So what is being presented is a partially signed Bitcoin transaction in QR code form. And so I am going to scan that with my Passport device. And so I'm going to hit this first option that says sign with QR code, because I need to apply a valid signature from my private keys that will never leave this device to the additional transaction information that is being presented in my Envoy app. So we'll go ahead and hit sign with QR code, and we will parsing and validating the transaction. And I can see the amount that I expect, the destination. Let's just double check and make sure that that looks all good and is the address that I think I'm sending it to. It looks all good. And so let's go ahead and hit right. There is no change amount because I'm fully sweeping my amount. I'm sending everything that I have. And there is the network fee. This is nice. It shows big fee. Network fee is more than 5% of the total non-change value. That is true. The mempool is pretty busy currently, but that is okay. And so it asks, sign transaction. We will say yes. So it is now using the private keys in this device, and we now are producing a fully signed Bitcoin transaction to broadcast to the network. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit the scan button in the app, and I'm going to scan what is on. And there we go. We can see the new transaction is pending in Blue Wallet. And moments later, we've got the update on the Envoy app. So there you have it. We showed how to set all this up, do all the validations, secure our backups, create our PIN, create our seed. We took a tour of some of the more advanced things that you can do with the device, including multi-sig setups, which we'll likely cover in a future video, but I've done a lot of that in past videos as well. And then we showed how to both receive and send funds using the Envoy as our interface, but ultimately signing using partially signed Bitcoin transactions with our fully air-gapped Passport device. So very, very cool stuff. With all that, let's go ahead and conclude today's video. All right, my friends, there you have it. We took a look at the Foundation Devices Passport, technically their batch 2, where you have the accompanying Envoy mobile app that walks the user through the onboarding setup process, ensuring that the software and hardware are properly paired together. And we took a look at sending and receiving Bitcoin. And I must say, I had high expectations for this, and those high expectations were certainly met. I think this is a really, really good option for even newbies, right? Because now that you have this sort of easier onboarding process through this mobile app, I think that unlocks a much wider audience for a world-class hardware device such as this. I'm curious to hear, what are your thoughts? Have you gotten a Foundation Devices Passport? Are there other hardware wallets that you would love to see? Again, I have done many, many videos on different wallets, but I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. But for now, we'll go ahead and leave this here. I hope you found this valuable and insightful. If you did, you already know what to do. Give this video a like. Use the share feature underneath the video. That really does help get this to more individuals. And I think having the right tools is critically important now more than ever, with so much degeneracy around us that we see. And if you were so enamored by this content and you want to donate to a pleb, which really helps me continue to make these videos, I will leave my Lightning address and Strike account in the final page that you will see momentarily. But for now, we'll go ahead and leave this here as a reminder, every sat counts. And until next time, I'll see you then.